Hey, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Parenting Puzzle podcast with the amazing Dr. Owen. She's, are you to my right? Yeah, no.
I don't
We're
know how it appears on the video.
okay. I'm going to go with, she's right next to me in the screen. So we wanted to come to you a new episode and a little bit of a different vibe for this episode. I think we're going to address a topic that's a little bit more on the heavy side.
Mhm.
So don't scroll, don't change the screen, don't multitask and look at other things. Stay because we're gonna address the topic about how to have difficult conversation difficult conversations with your kid. If you think I'm struggling with my words, I am because this is a new arena for us a little bit. But how to have conversations with your kids that are really challenging. I think it goes without saying, and I think it'd be amiss for us not to at least say something about it.
Oh.
That it goes without saying that we're in a world that things happen um, that are just awful, um, and there's no rhyme or reason to it, and that it's hard for us to understand, right? As adults, right, Dr. D? As adults, there's things that happen in the world that we struggle to understand why this happened. And if we struggle to understand it, it makes sense that our kids are going to have questions about it. Like, hey, why did this happen? So, over the last few weeks, there's just been a multitude of things that have happened in our country. That one, it's sad, it's tragedies, all of them. Um, but we thought we would address a topic about when our kids have a chat, maybe they've seen something or heard something, or even maybe even worst case scenario, they've been through a trauma like that. Um, how do we address those super hard questions? Dr. D, how are you doing?
I'm feeling the weight, Jake, and I'm glad we're talking about this. Not because I'm horrified about what's happening, but I do think it leaves parents, in some cases at the far extreme, kind of paralyzed in terms of parenting. Because what do we say? How do we say it? What is appropriate, what isn't appropriate. It's really hard to know, and
Yeah,
we all want to do the best by our kids, and we're all, you know to some degree taking in the information of the news, and it just is a flat out parenting challenge. And so I'm glad we're talking about this today, because I hope we can send our listeners home with some golden nuggets that are valuable to them. And just like last week, our parent who was on just said, she ended by saying, like, I'm so glad I have a plan now, because I was just feeling stressed about what was happening and I didn't know what to do. And I'm hoping that we can give parents just a
yeah.
few little plans here to take away, so that they have some ideas about what they can do in these moments, to help their families best.
Because the sad thing about it, Dr. D, is our kids are gonna have questions. They're so, I think we were just talking about this when before we started recording, but like we're in an age today where parents is even harder because and I guess that'll be our first kind of talking point.
Cool.
But like these events happened,
Yeah.
right? All these different um horrible incidents that took place over the last week. And for me, I know I felt heavy about it. Not one more than the other, but all of them. I mean, there was so many things that happened last week and the last week and a half. And now today, more than like 30 years ago or even 10 years ago, or when I was a kid or you were a kid, we can go and access the videos, right? And seeing it happen. And
Mhm.
that adds an extra weight too, because you're exposing yourself to that traumatic event, right? It could be potentially triggering for people. And I guess my question to you would be like, one, as a parent, if you see a video like that and it's triggering for you, how to manage that and still be a good parent. And then two, God forbid, if your child is exposed to one of those videos and watches it somehow, right? And then yeah, yeah, what to do in those situations.
So, yeah, so I'm going to answer your questions in the order you asked them. So, the first is, how do parents cope with this? It is so hard to, you know, hear, read, see this really heavy news and then just turn around and be able to be kind of happy and silly with your kids, right? Yeah, exactly. And so, one thing to do is, we've talked about this theme before, giving ourselves grace, giving ourselves some compassion, and being able to take some time for ourselves and get support, and be able to talk with friends or family members or trusted others, that we can have these conversations, because we know when there's something scary or upsetting, that processing that through just having a conversation doesn't necessarily get us answers about what's happening in the world or what to do, but just being able to talk about it and not have it just kind of like bouncing around in our head like
Mhm.
a ping pong ball is actually good for us as humans. And so that would be one recommendation. And then another one is to use the phrase yes and. So this idea of like, yes, these bad things happen in the world, and right now, quote my own book, right now I am fine, right? So being able to say, like,
Go
we're
get the
not
book.
we're not we're not eliminating one for the other, right? We're not like, oh, I want to be silly with my kid, but people are being, killed senselessly all over the country, right? It's not a but, it's an and. It's like we can hold those two things at the same time. That's one of our amazing abilities as humans, is being able to hold kind of competing or sort of non-complementary emotions at the same time. And psych science is more recently kind of coming out and saying, yes, these two things can happen at the same time. So we can be silly and sad, right?
Right.
We can be experiencing the all of the feelings we're having from these upsetting news events, and if we personally are not affected because it wasn't, our family member or, someone close to us, we can also like hold that and care about that, and do our part, as citizens and for our community, to take care of ourselves and each other, and also be present with our kids to the best of our abilities. And if not, you know, it's a good time to get support from others, whether it is like a family member or a neighbor who can step in and help out a little bit more, or even hiring a babysitter because you're just distraught at the end of the day and you don't have that much left to give to your kids. So after school, so can you have, if you have a family of a babysitter that sits your kids, can they come and do the hour after school so you can just like go take a walk or something to take care of yourself? So that's the parenting self-care piece, and it's hard. And I think for some parents it's really hard because we don't necessarily like give ourselves permission to need that, and yet we're humans, and hearing upsetting things and being scared is real, right? And so honoring that and giving ourselves the kindness and compassion and grace to be feeling our feelings is important. It really, really is. And
I think it's interesting too, like, for me as a man too, sometimes it's hard for me to say like, "Hey, you know what? I'm not okay right now. I think I need some help."
yeah.
And I think that's not just a man thing, I think that's a everybody thing. Like, as parents, as adults, as husbands, wives, whatever, we always just wanna be okay. And sometimes it's okay to not be okay
Yeah,
and just raise your hand and say, this is really impacting me,
yeah,
um, in a negative way. I think I need some help, either professionally by going talk with somebody or just having a break, right? So I think that's great advice, Dr. D, as always. And go get her book. Right now I'm fine.
yeah. Where is it? I think it's over here. But also, like, I just want to point out that having, like, for people who actually do have the luxury of this, doing things like taking a paid time off day and saying, and not judging ourselves for it, not like, well, I don't, this shouldn't count for paid time off. I'm not sick. I'm not whatever. But it's like, but I'm sad from what's happening. And I need to go and take care of myself, whatever that may be, whether it's like staying in bed all day and watching movies, or whether it's like going out and taking a long walk in nature, like those things, that's real. And being able to give ourselves permission to feel that way actually is the thing that helps us feel better. And when we say, no, 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 I shouldn't need this, I shouldn't need this, I should be able to do everything and then show up for my kids, it's going to come out somewhere, and it's going to come out probably where you least want it to, being kind of impatient with your kids, because it's hard to have all those feelings and then have your kid just do something completely ridiculous that kids do because they're little and they're just doing their best in the world, right? And sometimes it's like really hard. And so being able to take your time for yourself and find those moments, even if it's like, if you don't have the luxury of having time off or someone to help, just being able to, you know, after you put your kids to bed, like take a bath instead of watching a show, right? Like do something to just like actually soothe yourself, rather than just like, I should be fine, I should be fine. Don't say I should be fine. If you're not fine, you're not fine, and that's cool. You don't have to be fine all the time. You're human. So I want to answer your other part, because it was a really, really important question. How do you respond to kids if they see this stuff? Okay, so there's a lot of important things that research tells us. The first is that they did some research. We're in September, shortly after 9/11 here, actually. And they did some research around that time. And of course, technology is so different in 2025 than it was in 2001. But what they found was that technology at that point in history was so different than it had been prior. And the images were being shown repeatedly on every news station. And now we're seeing it online everywhere, right? So even kids who didn't have access to like the family TV can now sometimes see these things kind of popping up, even if they don't have their own social media, perhaps someone else's social media. And so we're going to be seeing these images. And a really, really important thing that they learned from researching that time period is that when we're seeing the images of the same thing happening again and again, sometimes kids don't understand that we're like watching it on repeat. And so it can feel really scary to kids, because they think each individual time is happening, something bad is happening again. And so it's really important for parents to realize that if kids are somehow seeing these horrific events happening repeatedly on different outlets, that they clarify with kids that it was a single isolated event rather than a repeated event. That's something
makes a lot
important
of
for
sense.
Yes, and as you can imagine, like for our human systems, right? Like that onslaught of seeing it again and again, and being able to watch these things that historically we haven't watched, because we haven't had CCTV coverage that's then put up on YouTube or whatever it may be,
Or these phones,
or on our phones, right? And so watching out for the fact that if we're watching these horrific events happening repeatedly, it is activating our stress systems repeatedly. And so we are getting these kind of like zings. You might think like, oh, I watched it the first time, seeing more about it. No, it is the impact it has on our brains and our nervous system, is that it's activating it each time we watch another clip of a shooting or stabbing or something like that. And so it's important for us to realize that you might need to limit for yourself, because each time you watch it, you're re-stressing your system. And so, sorry, I got off from answering about the children, but just understanding.
That's a great point for anybody.
Yeah, the science behind it is that like seeing it repeatedly is re-stressing our system, and the littles don't necessarily understand that this is one incident that they're seeing again and again. And so that's really important to clarify it. So the other thing that science tells us about what we should do in the face of, even if it's the death of a family member, a friend or something, is to be as honest as possible with kids in an age appropriate way, right? And so I think a lot of times well-intentioned parents use language that ends up being actually more problematic. So if you have a pet and you need to have that pet killed because they're really ill, for example, don't say we're putting our pet to sleep. Don't say we're putting our pet down, because we put our kids to sleep every night. We put our kids down to bed. And so sometimes kids will get really scared when they hear that a pet is being put to sleep. okay, not a 16-year-old, but a 6-year-old for sure, because they're like, I go to sleep every night. What if I don't wake up? Or if we say of a family member, oh, they died in their sleep, right? We might just be trying to protect our kids from having to explain what cancer is, for example. But actually, you're better off saying they had this really terrible illness that they got, and they were, the treatment wasn't working, and the doctors did everything they could, and whatever. Give some true facts about the situation, but telling kids that animals or loved ones died in their sleep is really dangerous to kids, because that then oftentimes results in sleep problems for kids and fears around sleep. So being honest actually is the best thing we can do when it comes to kids. And we're not going to give them gory details, but
Yeah.
we can say, like, there are bad people in the world that harm other people who are doing nothing wrong. And, that happens. And it's really, really sad when it happens. And then you can say, and we'll do everything in our power to protect you. And we love you. And, you can reassure them, like, generally we live in a safe place, and, generally we're okay. And so sometimes bad things happen, and that's just part of life. Right? And it's hard to say that to kids, and also it's true. And so to some degree, being able to be honest with them like that can feel really uncomfortable for parents. It can feel really scary. Kids tend to take it better than we would expect, actually.
I never thought about the whole sleep thing. Um,
Yeah, kids come to
like,
me with sleep problems, and that's the origin of it.
yeah, so you're trying to protect them from this, and now maybe you're protecting them from that one situation, but you've created a whole sleeping problem. And the last thing we need as parents is our kids struggling to sleep because we're already tired.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, that's not what we're trying to create out here.
Exactly, exactly. And so again, well-intentioned parents trying to protect their kids from the evils of the world. I get it. Trust me, I get it. But actually what we know is giving kids facts, being as honest as possible, and then, just keeping it simple for age
Mhm.
appropriateness so that it's not doesn't overwhelm them, but being available to answer questions. And again, it's kind of this balance between being honest and not giving too much information that you're scaring kids, and that can be a really hard line for parents. So the best kind of rule of thumb I can say is keep it simple, give a few sentences only, give facts but not details, and then, you can give reassurance about your family's best attempts at safety.
Yeah. Um, this is obviously a heavy topic. Is there anything else that you want to say about this? I know we've addressed a lot. Just is there anything else top of mind?
Well, I guess, w- one thing would be, we went to the safety training recently and learned that awareness is so, so, so important, and like awareness of our environment. And nowadays, a lot of us, are like on phones, sometimes earbuds in, and not
Mhm.
necessarily around. And
Paying
kids, like
attention.
older kids and teens, are doing the same thing. And we heard this really interesting, completely true story of a middle school bus that the bus driver went into cardiac arrest, and all the kids on the bus except for one were on their devices. Most of them had, earbuds in, or those big noise canceling headphones on. One kid didn't. His parents didn't let him have a phone. God bless him,
Mhm.
because that kid realized something was up, ran to the front, grabbed the wheel, got the bus into park somehow, and saved the entire bus of kids. If that kid wasn't aware of his surroundings, it's possible that that entire bus of kids would have died, which would have been just another tragedy for us to be living through. So, teaching your kids the importance of awareness, if you're giving your kids devices, if they're using noise canceling headphones or earbuds or something, just teaching them safety and good use. It's not intuitive necessarily. And so it's
Mhm.
really hard, because we give them sometimes things that are, pleasant and lovely to enjoy, but they need to sometimes come with warnings, because the more aware we are of our surroundings, the better off we are in terms of situations that are can be dangerous. It's sometimes there's nothing you can do. But
Yeah.
there are other times where having some level of awareness, looking around, seeing what's going on. We certainly don't want to make our kids any more anxious than they are. We certainly don't want to make them paranoid, but just this concept of being aware of our surroundings in this day where it's really easy to zone out is
Oh
just
yeah.
something to keep in mind.
I think people are using screens, and I'm probably guilty of this as well, as like a coping mechanism. You know, it's like I can't deal with what's going on in the world. I'm just gonna be lost in whatever form of entertainment from this phone that I'm getting. And I think I've definitely heard of trainings like that too, like safety type trainings where there's different levels of awareness that you need to have based on where you are, what you're doing, but you always want to be aware of, like, I mean, even when I'm like walking through the parking lot of a grocery store, I always look around and make sure everything seems normal, and I'm aware of like the surroundings around me. So I think that's a great point.
And telling kids that if they see something that makes them feel uncomfortable, uneasy, or kind of feel suspicious, that we should also listen to our gut instincts. We can't always have that gut instinct and we can't always pick it up. But if there's something, to your point, if you go into a space and something just isn't sitting right, move from that space. Like that's
Yeah.
okay. And I think, this day we're all scared about being sensitive and aware, and all of that's important. And at the same time, like, you can't always ensure safety, but if something's making you uneasy, move, leave, get out of there. Take care of yourself, and you never know what that is going to result in. Maybe nothing, maybe something, but I think it's just a good thing as parents to let our kids know. It empowers them instead of just making them feel like victims. Is like, if
Yep.
you are in a space and something is just feeling off, either say something if that's if it's that kind of situation, or do something about it, right? Kind of like go somewhere else, move to a different space, like protect yourself and value your own safety if in that kind of circumstance.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, so last word. I'm just going to kind of hit three key points that I hope are useful takeaways for people. The first is, when there are bad, heavy things going on in the world, going on in our country, you as a parent have permission to be a human and to be feeling your feelings and take care of yourself and do things to get your own support so that you are able to cope with that, and parenting, and using yes and this idea of, I'm really upset, and I'm having a fun moment with my child right now, or reverse it, I'm having a fun moment with my child and I'm still feeling sadness about what's going on in the world. That's a really important piece of parenting self-care. When it comes to talking to kids about bad things that are going on in the world, be straight with them. Kids need to know, give them the facts, leave out the details, keep it basic, keep it within their range of understanding. We don't want to scare them, but we also don't want to unintentionally try to guard them and have this kind of unintentional side effect of them either getting the information somewhere else and then being confused, or kind of thinking one thing and not really understanding what's going on. So please be straight with your kids. Most of the time they can handle it. Give them the facts, answer their questions, keep it simple, don't go into detail. And the last thing I want to mention is, teach your kids to be aware of their surroundings. We cannot necessarily prevent terrible things and dangers from going on in the world. But if they are looking around, being aware, can hear what's happening around them, they can make good, safe choices when they're in their environments as best as they can. And so teach your kids to use their tech responsibly so that they're both enjoying it and also knowing what's going on around them, because that sometimes actually is the thing that ends up saving lives.
Yeah, this conversation was good, but it was also heavy. And I just think one thing I'd say, um, if you're in a place where you need some help, I've been in a time in my life before, I guess I'll be a little more vulnerable, where I needed help. I got some help, right? Um, it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to raise your hand and ask for help. We have a lot of weight on us as parents The last few weeks have been weighty. So yeah, if you need some help, ask for help, and that's okay. Like Dr. T
Right.
said, that's cool. Um, if you like the podcast, I feel even weird doing my promotion spell, but I'm gonna do it anyway. If you like the podcast, follow us. Go check out Dr. D. She's on Instagram and YouTube. Go check out her books on her website. You could check out her books on Amazon. Has some great coping mechanisms in there. Follow the podcast, like it, share it. We love doing this. This conversation was a little bit different, but we thought that it was necessary to address it and give some tips because I've heard from so many parents that this is something that they're dealing with personally, and so is Dr. D. Dr. D, thank you. This has been not fun, but I think needed.
Yeah, agreed.
Have a
Agreed.
great rest of your day.
Appreciate
Thank you.
you too.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving us a review. It really helps us out and lets others discover the show.